quite a bit has happened since the last press conference, and today I want to share my perspective on some of these issues. However, I want to talk a bit about the Albion rally. I've seen the usual stuff from the opposition media, an attempt to downplay the significance of the massive turnout at that rally, which was possibly the largest ever in the history of this country. And then at the same time, they magnify the scanty gatherings of the opposition parties. The crowd in Berbice was mainly from Berbice, Region 6. Some people traveled up on their own. They were not bused to Region 6. That was an organic Region 6 crowd. Unlike the public meetings and the so-called rallies that we have seen from the opposition to create photo opportunities that are then pushed on their sympathetic pages to look as though they have momentum. So I saw a meeting at Parfait Harmony, and people were taken. I spoke with the people from Parfait Harmony. For a public meeting, they bus people into Parfait Harmony, and even then it was a small gathering. I saw the East Coast rally of the APNU, and again there too, you had people from Region 10, Region 6, Region 5, Region 3, who were taken to Melanie on the East Coast, an area that is historically a stronghold of the PNC and APNU. But they still have issues with the Albion crowd. In fact, somebody says, like the Kaichor News, it was just about 5,000 people there. And that rallies don't really win elections. It's true, rallies don't win elections, but it is a litmus test of people's willingness to come out on their own to support an agenda for this country, an agenda that is demonstrably positive and that will lead to a better future for all. And so we're thankful to all the people in Berbice who attended the rally, who walked long distances to get there and to walk on the road behind the convoys. In fact, this was all organic. The party did not arrange it. I saw people putting together their own motorcades coming down because they felt the energy. And what was so pleasing is that you had thousands, tens of thousands basically of people, but a significant number of young people who were part of the rally, which is good because often young people, sometimes they become a bit distracted by other issues and they don't engage in the messaging and participation in these activities. So that was pleasing for me there. In Moruca, the president went to some public meetings in Moruca and Madhya, and you saw the turnout there too. In Moruca, it was a massive meeting that we had, and it is reflective of our support in that area and also what the PPP has done in the Amerindian communities. that were all falling apart, dying just a few short years ago under APNU because of neglect, because of active policy of discrimination. And whilst we haven't been able to fix every problem in those communities and many other communities in the country, because really we have had 3 years to implement the agenda of the government, having lost 2 years to COVID, people have seen a commitment from the PPP to addressing the issues in their communities. And Amerindian communities have benefited enormously from the active support of the government. And if you talk to the two shows or you talk to villages, people in the villages, they will see that. The same thing happened in Madhya. Madhya also, we had a good turnout there. It's a small community. But you had a really good turnout, and the president was able to explain the messaging of what took place there. So all in all, we're very pleased with how the campaign is going. There will be several other big public meetings. You would see the numbers there, and the others can do whatever they want. Say the Starbuck News Win Party goes to Wakanam and get 30 people, and Starbuck News puts Wakanam in full support of this party. We could get 1,000 people, 5,000 people at a public meeting, and for them it doesn't matter because they're all biased against the People's Progressive Party, and that bias is reflected in a master plan. So let me talk a bit about what we've seen from the opposition. You know, the PPP has always said that there is this master plan of collaboration behind the scenes between Azharuddin Mohammed and APNU and AFC. And the objective is to bring the PPP under 50% in the parliament. So this is their hope that that will take place. In the last week, the last press conference of the AFC, when asked about this question, when asked this question, are you in discussions with any party? This is what Patterson said. Discussions have always been ongoing. It never ceased. We'll continue to discuss until a final decision is made. We have almost 3,000 polling stations to man, and it may be difficult for one party. Well, it's not, we're gonna man every polling station. We're training now 3,500 polling agents. But of course, AFC cannot get those numbers to go into every polling place. So we're talking about that too. If you ask who, again, the simple answer is anyone other than the PPP. Anyone other than the PPP. They don't mind collaborating with the devil. They don't mind collaborating with an individual who is sanctioned by the United States of America and poses a severe risk to our country, our future, our well-being, our jobs, everything else. They don't mind collaborating. Anyone but the PPP. This is the pathological hatred of the PPP that comes out from the AFC, Patterson and the others. They will destroy the country, but not PPP. They don't want PPP. They will ignore every progress our country has made. We can go back to the past. We can start starving again. We can lose jobs. But anyone but the PPP in office. So they don't care about people. They have an obsession, a hatred for the PPP. And that reflects itself in what they mentioned. This was their last press conference. Anyone but PPP will collaborate with anyone. So then, at the APNU's press conference, Chabrol asked about collaboration with the Mohammeds and whether he believed, that is, Norton believes that Azruddin Mohammed is paying people to attend the meetings. And whilst he acknowledged that that may be so, because he did so elsewhere, that Azruddin Mohammed is paying people to attend the meetings and to support him, he said the focus should not be, and this is direct quote, the focus should not be on the Mohammed, it should be on PPP. So again, never mind he is paying people to go, never mind he poses a risk to the country, never mind he can't put together two clear, coherent words. Anyone but the PPP. So he said the focus should not be on the Mohammed, it should be on the PPP again, reflecting what Patterson said in the AFC. This is two separate press conferences, APNU and AFC, and they all reflect the same sentiment. And the sentiment is that we will collaborate with the devil. We just don't hate the PPP so much. We don't want PPP for whatever. Even if they do a great job, we just don't want them. We don't care about people. We just hate the PPP. That's reflected there. Then Mahipal said, there's no need to fear in APNU. Mohammed is not going to take our support because 72% of the candidates on Mohammed's list comes from the PPP constituencies. It's not totally accurate, and however, it's reflective of a mindset and collaboration. The mindset is that if 72% of the candidates in their view comes from PPP strongholds, which is not true, but if they think that, then they think that Mohammed serves their interests, him being in the race, because he could bring the PPP back into minority status. They're hoping for a repeat of 2011. You know 2011, the PPP won the presidency but did not have the majority in parliament. And thereafter, the country suffered. We had gridlock, nothing moved. You couldn't move anything in parliament. It became like just it's not just gridlock, but the pettiness that went on in parliament. The country practically ground to a standstill in that period when Ramatar was president. It started going downhill from there because the party could not get its agenda implemented. Every time you present a budget, they would cut the budget, cut out money for UG, for hinterland airstrips, for Amerindian development, for everything, because they wanted the government to look bad at that time. So Parliament really controlled the executive. That they're hoping for a repeat of that. It's not going to happen because we have done our polls and we are going to do extremely well in the elections. But it just tells you about the behind-the-scenes collaboration between these parties. They are collaborating, they quietly, but their public statements, sometimes the careless statements, betray the collaboration. And this is what we have seen. So we can expect more of this. That is why Norton will not, even when the Mohammeds go into their base, he doesn't say anything about it, because he believes somehow they're going to be taking support from the PPP. So the hatred of the PPP is more important than the future of the country. That is what we're getting from the opposition, and careful collaboration. Now, for the past, we've heard all sorts of things from different political parties about their plans for the future. Our argument has always been that political parties can put anything down on paper. They can get someone else to write their manifesto, as we've seen with the AFC, and when they get someone, they're paying someone to write their manifesto. They can make extravagant promises that have no basis in economic reality. But this is happening, and they're putting this out. APNU has put out a series of things that they plan to do. We dealt with that before, that there is no macroeconomic framework in which to situate the promises. There is no sustainable framework to situate the promises in. They have not defined their taxation policy, the fiscal policy, the monetary policy. They just make these wild promises, and often the promises are based on how much more they can offer than the PPP has promised, Nothing grounded in reality. But APNU has been putting these out for the past few weeks now as part of their future manifesto. The AFC unveils a 100 days plan. Now, what they will do in the first 100 days, we remember in 2015, the 100 days plan, when they were part of APNU AFC together, nothing was implemented from the 100 days plan. They didn't implement the 100 days promises in 5 years. So we know where the difference is between promises and delivery on promises. We've been subjected to their deceit before. So if they believe they can come and deceive us again, then they have to think twice. All these promises they're going to give a 75% increase to public servants. The other APNU said 35% per year for every year, the 5 years. That will be equivalent to $1 trillion. We don't even have a budget. We have a budget about 1.1 trillion, and they would give all of it in wages and salaries to the public service. The threshold would be raised so high that it would wipe out our entire tax base. They would pay everybody's rent. They will deliver pumpkin and squash at cheap prices direct. They would give you for free. You don't have to go to the grocery market anymore, grocery stores. They would bring pumpkin and squash and everything to your homes in little packages and hand deliver them. Nonsense, you know what I'm talking about. Not real things. Because they believe that the season is about that. So we are not just, we have analyzed everything they've offered and we've come up with some basic things, that they are only saying what they're going back to the past, saying the things that they believe people want to hear, so that they can get their votes. So they have no plan in implementing this, and they know they can say this because they're not going to win the elections too. So they can say anything. They can make any promise because they know they're not going to win the elections. But that's to mislead people. The Win has been saying they had a press conference recently, and the press conference seemed to have been inviting only specific people. So I saw a particular individual from the Starbuck News, a particular individual from, I think, Mosley area, and then Kaichor News to their press conference. And so they are handpicking people, and I believe that a lot of the people they handpick to go to their press conferences are sympathetic to their cause. They don't want to hold open press conferences where the tough questions would be asked. So the general secretary of that party, now Win Party, and I'm really thinking about giving up the general secretary job. Because if you could have Odessa Primus be general secretary of a political party, I don't have anything about people, you know, etc. But she's really a comedian. A comedian. That is. I got to rethink this job here that I have as general secretary of the PP. But that's an aside. She said they're waiting on the other parties to come out with their manifesto before they launch theirs, because they want to see what the other parties are offering. So the other parties, to their credit, even the APNU and the others, they might be talking nonsense and making wild promises, but at least they've been saying things. So I think she was not even questioned by the media, the curated media there, that was there. Not even questioned. So today I heard they're launching their manifesto. So obviously they've seen what's happening. So I saw some elements of the manifesto being spoken about by their presidential candidate, hiding from the media, surrounded at a public meeting in Parfait Harmony again, and trying to keep the media away from him because he can't answer questions. So he said, I will not take the salary of the presidential salary if I win the elections. So this guy, without serving a single day as president, has already been collecting president salaries. He evaded in 5 years $11 billion in taxes. So he hasn't even served a single day, and he's collected the salary equivalent to 275 years that a president would take to earn what he has collected already, stolen from the treasury. He doesn't need to collect presidential salary. He collected it already, the 11 billion taxes, only in 5 years that they were evaded from smuggling gold. 275 years it will take for a president to earn that. So it's nonsense, because you've already stolen billions and billions in taxes from the treasury. Even on the Lamborghini, he is evaded by submitted a fake invoice, the equivalent of 10 years of a presidential salary. So that's not a really great promise to make. He said he will fight corruption. Imagine a man sanctioned for gold smuggling by the United States of America, the Treasury, a man who has been accused of money laundering by Reuters, of drug smuggling by Reuters, who have been accused of murder. He has been implicated in torture, in trafficking of people, talking about fighting corruption. So just imagine people smuggling gold. You say, don't pay the taxes. That's his way of fighting corruption. Incorporate all the drug dealers and the gold smugglers, etc., in the government. Then you end corruption. That is his great promise to the people of the country. And you know, it irks me that a person like him could say that and get away with it. The most corrupt individual in the country talking about corruption. And it's not just corrupt, demonstrably so. You've been sanctioned for corruption and for smuggling gold by you're on international sanctions. You can't have any account anywhere in the world, not just in the United States of America. No bank in the world will do business with the Mohammeds. Nobody in the world can do business with the Mohammeds, and you're talking about fighting corruption. So today, in keeping again with that, with hiding him from the media, I saw them inviting the media to go to their launch of their manifesto, and then later changing it back where they said he would answer questions on everything and he would present their manifesto. They just said it's fake and it's invite only. I saw the sister posted it's invite only. So imagine sending out an advisory to the media and then saying invite only. So when you're coming to my press conference, you would only come by invitation. I wonder if I'll extend to the Kaichor News. If I had that choice, I will invite the Kaichor News too, but then I can handpick who I want. Invite only, and the press association will sit there and not say anything about it. Just imagine the PPP or any other party try to do that. Send out an advisory and say you can only come to our launch or our press conference by invitation. We will handpick which media houses will go there. So let's see who they will handpick to go there. And there should be solidarity in the media. Nobody should even go because you shouldn't allow that to happen. But the press association will never say anything about this because they're going to hide him away again. And I suspect if they have a launch, somebody else would be reading or he'd be reading. They'll have to prep him to read a couple of things and he wouldn't be able to answer anything on the policies. They'll prep him, they have him in school or they surprise us with a ruler, tapping him on the fingers and saying, read here. And there would, anybody from the media will ask him a tough question, they will jump in again to save him. You can't have that happening. This is like he's running for president of the country, not I don't even want to say, because that would be disparaging for some other people. Because they even want him for the presidency of a cat and dog association. So today I'm actually looking forward to see the format, because what they would go and promise anything. I'm not looking forward to their so-called manifesto, because that would be nonsense and people would write. I'm looking forward to the great presentation and answering the tough questions. What would be his view on making sure that the macroeconomy remains, in like accommodative for all the fiscal policies that he'd be pursuing. I would hope that he would give his views on matters like those, and because they're important to the country. We may not talk about them often enough. But in keeping with all that have come out in the public domain, we have in the People's Progressive Party been talking about the things, our track record. And by now, most of you would have seen this. A few weeks ago, we printed this document, which now is being delivered to every home. I spoke to you of it. It's online, it's being delivered to every home. This is even before the launch of our full manifesto. It speaks about the promises we made and the delivery on the promises in 2020, the 3 years it took. We've delivered way beyond what we promised the people of this country. So we kept our word. Two, in these pages, we have outlined over the next 5 years, there are literally tons of measures here, what we intend to do in every sector. So in education, we laid out world-class education for all, and we listed here several things that we'd have to do, about 8 or 9 policies that we intend to pursue to deliver world-class education. So it includes modern technology, artificial intelligence, digital school management and accountability, strengthening that so we get better results in the schools, because we find that schools that are better managed, where the headmaster, the headmistress have training in management, we get better results. We talk about free education at every level. We talk about increasing the Because We Care grant. We talk about a transport grant for every school child. We talk about expanding the school feeding program, the day and night care facilities for people who are working, so that the children could, be kept safely in a proper environment. We talk about tech-voc education, and we talk about civic education to promote patriotism in the country. So we listed already, and we've been circulating weeks ago, what the big ideas in which, how we're going to pursue better education, world-class education for all the people of the country. We've listed the measures we intend to pursue. We're not going to say just education. We listed several things here, 8 or 9 things here that we believe are critical now, if implemented, would help families. So mothers working, fathers can have day and night care. The families don't have to pay for education at every level. They get a transport grant. They get the Because We Care grant is increased. The children get more food and more nutritious food in schools. We upgrade the curricula. We go more to digital means, empowering people. That is what we are promising in education. We didn't wait until a manifesto launch, because we've been working at this for a while. So in education, I'm looking forward to see what else they're going to promise on education. And it would increase, of course, better training for our teachers, increase wages and salaries for our teachers. It includes all of that. On healthcare, we did the same here. Modern world-class healthcare. So we talk about the hospitals, the 12 hospitals, the rehabilitation of others, upgrading the service, training more people, getting the drugs available and the medical supplies, doing more, providing better care across the country, more accountable care. All of these things are part of it. Incentivizing private care, making sure that people who have more complex operations like heart surgery, etc., they get help from the government. People living, like those who need dialysis, they too can get support. So we've outlined that here in great detail. There are several measures here on the world-class healthcare, and this is in every community. fueling growth, creating jobs, and improving livelihoods. So we just pulled together some of the ideas. So first of all, it's the development bank. The development bank that will support the creation of jobs, but small business. It's about opening up more lands for the miners and the farmers. It's about farm to market road, D&I. It's about support to the agricultural sector and every other industry, processing hubs, local content secretariat and legislation to expand more opportunities for Guyanese. It's a favorable incentive regime that is lower taxes to assist all the productive sectors. We've outlined in great detail. No other political party has done so. They just go with the slogans. We've gone into the details of how we intend to achieve that, so people can see that. The safe country and secure communities. We talk about accountability in the security services. Accountability means accountability from the police and from everyone else for the work they do. So greater support for our security services to keep us safe in our country and on the border, but greater accountability on the part of the law enforcement agencies. Of course, how we intend to pursue that, we talk about it here. Training, technology, all of these things are part of investment in our capability to police the exclusive economic zone. That's part of it. This small flyer has all of that. The small flyer that we have, although in the next 5 years, what we're doing. It lays it out. In terms of affordable homes and stronger communities, we said 50,000 house lots. It took us $300 billion to do those 50,000 house lots. We're busy putting in the infrastructure. I saw Azruddin Mohammed said, oh, they only give you the land. Do you know what it takes to prepare 50,000 house lots? Do you know what it takes? Not just to go and hide a ton of gold and smuggle it one time out the country. It takes much more to do that. It's a large-scale task. You have to clear areas, put in drains, you have to put in lights, water. That's what's happening now. 300 billion. He's making a joke of it. Oh, they only give out the 50,000 lots. They didn't build homes. Well, and he built more homes than the government, he said this. A blatant lie. You had about 5,000 houses built by the government since we took office, although we didn't promise that in the manifesto. We lowered the mortgage rate. We put in the free cement and steel program to address increase in costs for people, for people, low-income people. So we have a lot of homes to build in the future because a lot of people are now getting their land. And that's why we said we will assist to also help people to build homes in the next term. And this is part of the manifesto because we want every person to own their own home. We've been encouraging young people not to go and collect 5,000. They have to fight for their 5,000 with doggy on the square. Or doggy has to beat you up for 5,000. We want you to own a plot of land. We're encouraging young people from time they hit 21 to apply for the land. Not to get a $5,000 or $10,000 where it would disappear. We're encouraging them to get a scholarship so that they can study. That's our plan for young people. Not to collect $10,000 and then get beaten up for it. That's the difference there. So yeah, we have to do that. And the blatant lie that this guy tells, he says he built more houses, he told the people in Parfait, than the government of Guyana did. With their own money. With their money because of the taxes stolen. So that's what we said here. We recognize all the things that haven't been done as yet. That's why here too we said, you're gonna get street lights, and 100,000 of those are already in order and would be implemented by the next year. Because that's what people ask for when we go. We said, you're going to get the recreational spaces fixed in every community. Look at the investments we are making in that. Almost all the grounds in Georgetown, 34 of them have already been upgraded and now are getting lights in those grounds. Recreational spaces, garbage collection, cleaner communities. We've already laid, I don't want to go through all the measures. We are the only party who said, how is it that we're going to change a community? We've outlined a vision for a community that we want our children to grow up in. We said, first of all, we're going to work to try to get the polluting businesses out of the community. And how would we do that? We want to build a number of facilities, 3 sets of facilities. One is commercial parking, so people don't have to park heavy-duty equipment in front of you and on your roads in the communities, blocking up the communities. So we're going to do that, commercial parking. 2, we're going to work with the small businesses in the communities to find land for them to take their polluting business. So if you have a spray painting shop or something like that, or you're mining sheep next door to someone in a community, like in Clombrook, I was told about a man mining sheep in the center of the village. We have to work with those people to get them to continue their economic livelihood, but not in the community. Thirdly, commercial space for business development, etc., in each community, so they have recreational and good commercial space in the villages. Concrete drains, lights, security cameras, planting trees. That's our vision. So if people have good jobs, they have decent communities, safe communities with recreational spaces. That's how we want our children in the future to grow up. We're taking time to define that in our manifesto. Not just the populist things, but how we see our communities and country evolving. And so that's clearly outlined here too. Not in the great detail I'm speaking about it, because just at 2 pages where we can speak about the future. It will be at the bottom here. You will see this is not our manifestos yet, but it has major issues here that we dealt with. See our 2025-2030 manifesto for more details. So you'd see much more details on some of these things when the manifesto comes out. But we know what we want to do already, because we've put them down and we've shared them. No doubt Win has been busy and the others going through this for the past 2 weeks, because they've been looking at basically a snapshot of our manifesto, which has been out for the past 2 weeks. Infrastructure to unlock opportunities and improve welfare. I'm not going to talk about that, but because you've seen it already. The roads and the bridges and the schools and the hospital and a whole heap of other things. Development of Amerindian communities. It's part of here. The manifesto. What we intend to do to make sure that Amerindian communities, they have the same sort of facilities and development that we have here. Youth, young people, what are we going to do about young people? What are the things we want to work with? In the development bank, there is a special window for young people and women that they would have preferences to access uncollateralized low interest loans or zero interest loans, because young people often don't have collateral. They can't go and borrow from a commercial bank. But they have good projects. We want to get them involved, not just contracting. Many of them are doing more contracting and getting work there. So we have laid out what our vision for young people. We want them to have jobs, better jobs, higher paying jobs. We want them to have good quality education, housing, and a chance to start small businesses. We talk about the seniors. how we hope to improve life for seniors in this country, apart from increasing the pension, which will happen. People living with disability, apart from this increasing the public assistance, we need to make sure that people who are living with disability have more opportunities for employment, etc. We talk about the public servants. Public servants going to see not just a significant increases in wages and salaries, but also in other benefits. There are tons of allowances that we have to yet adjust. Like I've been talking to a number of people, as people upgrade themselves with a gold scholarship in every sector of the economy, as you study more, you will get increases. Like we did with the teachers. You get a master's now, you get more money. You get a bachelor's, you get more money. A master's more, a doctorate. The nurses are studying more too. And we provide you the opportunity to study. The moment you qualify, we have to now increase the allowances for a lot of these, for the people who work in the public sector, or soldiers, policemen, everyone else. We talk about cash grants, and the cash grants here are going to assist people, also poor families, but also Guyanese generally. So we intend to target poorer families more for increased transfers from the Treasury, but almost every Guyanese will continue to benefit from the cash grant. On cost of living, we recognize that people, after COVID, when we were hit with the price increases because of COVID, factories were shut down, etc. And then two, we had the price of fuel going up globally because of the war in Ukraine, and then the problem in the Middle East between Israel and Palestine, and with the Houthis doing basically bombing ships that were going through that area. Oil prices skyrocketed. If we did not, and that's what when people talk about cost of living, if we did not subsidize electricity, the price would have skyrocketed. We're spending $14–15 billion now per year in subsidizing electricity. So your price for electricity from 2020 to 2025 did not change. We did not increase the price in spite of what happened globally. Electricity price, paying a high electricity price is part of cost of living. Paying a higher water rate is part of your cost of living, and we kept water rate constant by subsidizing that too. We then remove the 50% tax. That's a $500 to $600 Guyana dollars subsidy for every gallon of gas and diesel you buy. Now, whether you're a farmer or you're an ordinary public servant who owns a car or a motorbike or even public transport. That's why public transport did not move up significantly, the cost of public transport, because of this subsidy. $80-something billion it cost us. People don't think about that. They don't think about that at all. They would raise, because if your transport costs had gone up and you had to spend more money in gas and diesel all the time to move to work, and your electricity bill had gone up and your water bill had gone up, then it would have been much harder today. But because of this subsidy, and we did it because we are concerned about the issue. We also brought down mortgage rates for people. Those who own homes now are paying a lower mortgage rate, which altered the system at customs to charge lower taxes on import particularly of food and other items coming into the country. We managed to get this price of stone back from $17,000 per ton. Now it's back to about $8,000 a ton, even lower than 2020. So food prices have moved, but I've seen it's variable. I saw I think it was the teachers union now saying they want price controls. Burnham did price controls, and what happened? The people stopped producing. The supermarkets were bare. Well, we didn't have supermarkets at that time, but the shops. People were going around hunting that. Doesn't work. You can't set a price control on the price of callaloo or okra. And cassava, I look at the cassava price, and all they're saying now, cassava prices and the retail end, I look at the same index that they're looking at, cassava prices today are cheaper than they were in 2020. I looked at it. And at that time, imagine 60,000 people less were working, so they didn't have an income. You had an increase on the apnea of cost of living, but they didn't have income. They weren't earning. So just imagine the sugar workers didn't have a job, but the cost of living on the apnea was going up because they increased UG fees, a number of prices were increased for a whole range of items. So just think about that. But they're trying to make it about, oh, government didn't do this. We're going to control the price of all of these things. You can't control the price of these commodities. How are you going to control the price of burro? So we have to work now to make sure that we have greater production. Once you expand the production and the supply to the market, why you think the black eye that we import now from abroad, which comes in at a higher price, we are producing, within 2 years, we're going to produce all the black eye we consume. Within another 2 years, we'll be doing all the red beans that we're importing. We'll be taking our soya production and pressing the soya bean oil so that the hundreds of containers that come in every month to supply our need for cooking oil, that we can produce it right here in Guyana. That is what we have to do. We have to produce more meat here, the pork. We're just having pork prices went up because of more people eating more meat now. So the best response is to incentivize people. We have to put it now to produce more. That's why we're talking about artificial insemination on a large scale. So it is that response that lowers the prices, not by saying, oh, subsidize, then nobody produces. Or not price control, then nobody would produce. It's nonsense. So this is how we are approaching that whole issue, and it's laid out here. So we are focused on putting more money in people's pocket through higher wages and salaries and lowering costs. Lowering costs. We're taking away the cost of funding education and health care from you, from your families. So you can go to any public hospital and get proper care. You don't have to worry when your child is born about their education, because the state will take care of it. You just have to be able to work, we provide more opportunities and acquire more things, and your community will have a safer environment. We have all of these things. We talk about strengthening governance, consolidating our democracy, an inclusive digital society, changing our society. None of them are talking about that. Changing the society itself, modernizing it. And also the young people of the future can then operate in that environment, and the older folks too. You'd have a more friendly government, a people-friendly government, making the life of a citizen easier, because all the services would be provided to them at their fingertip. That's what we are working on. Not a single political party has been defining that. And I'm sure Win or nobody else, he just be talking about victimization. So this flyers outlining all of these things I just spoken out has been out in the public domain for the past 2 weeks, and it's now being shared at every house in the country. And it lays out just some of our ideas for the future. These are just some of the ideas for the future. If you look at the back here too, we have about 30 ideas here, like incentivizing, and I didn't even mention that, incentivizing and protecting the creative industry. We've had a lot of issues from people in the creative industry who are producing content, social media, etc., music, whatever. So how do we incentivize the creation of more content, the export of this content, and then protecting their content for the local artists? That's part of our plan. Protecting women and children against sexual and domestic violence. We have seen this. The Adriana Young issue, the young lady who was raped recently in a bar. These incidents, while you can't avoid them completely, but we must have a better way of addressing them. We must have a better way of addressing them. The laws have been changed. Over the years, when I was president, we passed new legislation to protect children. We set up the Child Protection Agency. We strengthened the laws governing domestic violence. But we need to continue working at this. This is a major, major issue that we need to continue. We talk about the president spoke about no new taxes. The last 5 years, that was one of our promises. No new taxes in the 5 years. Reversing the new taxes, we kept that promise. Just imagine you live in a country and the government says we're not going to increase taxes for the next 5 years. So you know right away, no taxation burden on you. And they actually did it. And then lowered the taxes that were increased by the last government on you, which we did too, on all of the sectors. I'm not going to go through them. VAT on water, the miners taxes, those on agriculture, almost every industry. We're promising that now again. No new taxes in the next 5 years. So you can leave here, because you're talking about a serious party, not these other parties. When it says it, you can rest assured that every time you hear the Minister of Finance on the PPP government present a budget, you know for sure now that there will be no new taxes in that budget. You don't have to worry about it. Under APNU, every year they were worrying, because look at Jordan's budget. Every year you had some increase in taxes. Some years maybe 70 taxes and fees were increased. Just look at the budget. You don't need to believe me, just look at that again. So we are making that promise again. The reduction of taxes on vehicles, particularly what the president said. In schools, the president spoke about we listen to people. We're not just building sports facilities. So you see sports facilities there. We're now going back to a culture of reintroducing sports and as a means of remaining healthy as part of our learning system. The president announced from the next term, every Friday afternoon we'll go back to sports, be dedicated to sports. So we will have to do the academic curriculum in the school system in 4.5 days in the week, and then Friday afternoon will be dedicated back to sports. So that means training of more teachers, to do the PE teachers, getting the Army to work. He was just telling me about the Army helping out in the beginning for doing fitness programs in the schools, etc. Back to get that, to have that happen again. So you see this. There's so many other things that you can read there. We also so these are all commitments we made. So you don't have to wait We've done this before, long time before. You don't have to wait on the PPP, some manifesto. We have been talking about ideas. And we don't care whether people steal the ideas or repeat the ideas. It's not a concern of ours. It's there because we know they have no plan to implement whatever they say. We have a clear plan. And from the consultations and along, because we shared a document in the consultation, that we had where we spoke about animal rights and stuff. So there were several additional things that came out of the consultation about, and I'm not going to list, they're long here, but they're about like welfare for animals. These are more expansion basically of the broad thematic areas. For example, integrate constitutional and legal reforms to protect vulnerable groups. We already promised that through the constitutional reform process, we're going to update frameworks, uphold cultural and religious inclusion. You heard the president already spoke about using religious organizations to assist us with creating the new society that we want to. These are just some of the things. Climate leadership came out, migration policy, as I said before, animal welfare, road safety, we talk a lot about that. These are just some of the additional things, but I'm not going to go through that here. Why did I spend the time here? Because we're already on the ground sharing this out. On weeks we've been doing this. We're on the ground already telling people what we're going to do. We're not a party. And every one of these things we've costed, they're part of the framework. So they're not going to lead to the country financial ruin in Guyana. They're not going to lead to financial ruin. Because that is what happens when you make these promises and they're not supported by careful analysis. So we'll return to this issue more about credibility surrounding plans. It's not about just plans, it's credibility surrounding plans. So when we go to a young Guyanese, we don't go with negatives. APNU goes to them now that the PPP, they went back to the past and brought up a whole ton of fake news about how the PPP were killing young Afro-Guyanese through extrajudicial means. They repeat the lies of the past. They've been everywhere doing that, hoping to keep young people away from us. They say to the middle class Afro-Guyanese, you're not going to get opportunities under the PPP. Although under the PPP, we've seen the biggest expansion of the Afro-Guyanese middle class. In fact, the whole middle class in the country. People owning things, setting up businesses. If you look at the local content secretariat and you look how many companies are registered there that are Afro-Guyanese, you'll be shocked. You look at the housing, the scholarships, you look at every other aspect. Look at the contracting in government. How many have grown? But they keep going with that old worn message. And that's why people are not showing up at their rallies. So they go to the middle class, they say that is young people, oh, they're killing through extrajudicial means. That's the old worn argument that they have been using to keep people away from us. When we go, we're entirely positive to young people. And that's what I'm submitting here today. We don't go like Win goes to them and say, oh, I'm going to give you a bit more money, like to come to my meetings, pay people. He has not defined a vision for young people, for anyone else. What are you going to offer them in terms of a country that has a future for them? Nothing, absolutely nothing. So that differentiates us. Talking about how tough it is and the continued assault against Afro-Guyanese by the other side is, look at Vincent Alexander. Vincent Alexander is a commissioner at GCOM. He was senior member of the IPADG. And this is what he said about James Bond. He talked about James Bond. Prominent political figure Vincent Alexander believes the decision of former PNCR James Bond to align with the PPP Civic has nothing to do with shared ideologies. According to Alexander, it's a trauma response. So James Bond doesn't have a brain. James Bond doesn't have the faculty to reason. He can't make his own decisions. He can't see progress and believe that there is progress. What he sees before his very eyes. It had to be some trauma response. They're trying to, so this is just the intellectualizing of the cuss out against people who have come to us. It's the counterpart of what the other person, I forgot his name, again from the WPA, Hines, who calls them vile names. So one hand you have a double assault, one calling people lick bottoms and all slaves, slave catchers, and all sorts of things. And another one, a trauma response. He's saying that James Bond is black people have historically been used as surrogates to invalidate the efforts of their own communities. So James Bond can't see the progress in Melanie and the neglect under the PNC. But because he's Afro-Guyanese, he must turn a blind eye to it. Because we own you and you must vote for us regardless of what happens. Not go to a party that says, we're going to do this and does it. And a party that says, we're trying to bring people together, all of our people, regardless of their race, work together. That is the sort of thing you get every day. And this propaganda is rife out there. Thankfully now, people don't care too much about it. They don't care about it because the people who are saying this are desperate. They are a dying breed. They're out there. They have nothing to offer. When Aubrey Norton says this or Vincent Alexander or the other, what do they have to offer people? More of the same neglect that they did in the past, more lies, more, oh, we love you, but let's get our hands on power. You're not going to see any progress. That's what they're doing. On the other hand, we don't make it look like, oh, people who come to us, they don't have to feel that they have to repent or atone for their past. People had a right to choose in the past, and they have a right to choose now. And they are part of a movement that is trying to build Guyana. The PPP is trying to create that. And it's made up of people of every race, Indo-Guyanese, Afro-Guyanese, mixed people, Amerindians, everyone. That is what we are working towards. So this constant assault is, they're hoping to keep people away by going at this. Look at their rallies. That's all it's about. Oh, the extrajudicial killing. I saw Paul Williams. The former deputy commissioner, maybe yes, he was deputy commissioner, mounted their platform and said the PPP discriminated against him. maybe implying because he's black. And then you look at it, another Afro-Guyanese, Hickens, is Afro-Guyanese, who is the commissioner. But did we really discriminate against him? The Paul Williams was 2 times he was considered by President Granger for the top positions or position in the police force, and both times he was bypassed. By the time we took office, he was already on his way out. He had to retire and he had accumulated leave. Twice it went to President Granger and he did not select him to be the commissioner. He picked other people and ahead of him. And in fact, when I had the consultations with President Granger, and he selected remember Ramnarayan was considered close to the AFC, was the acting commissioner at that time. And he didn't even consider Ramnarayan, only his acting commissioner, for one of the deputy positions. And I said to him, here is an Indo-Guyanese guy, you have 4 persons that you're considering, and he's acting in the position, and you didn't even consider him. And he said to me, I had specific reasons. Didn't say what they were. If you talk about discrimination, and Ramnarayan was not pro-PPP, he was pro-AFC, couldn't even be considered. But making it seem, he mounted a platform at Melanie with a crowd from all over the place that they had to bring from everywhere else, and told them it's a PPP that discriminated against him, so he couldn't be commissioner of police, when Granger bypassed him twice. This is the rewriting of history, the lies that they tell to keep people. So those people who are there who may not have known it, say, yeah, look, the big bad PPP bypassed him again. That is the constant thing. I've seen Nigel Hughes going around, and this guy, like, he is another nitpicker, like the France. You know this, the Forge of France, the Mark France. The Nigel Hughes a nitpicker. Look at this poster he posted. The First Lady, Susan, and another young lady, and he said, vote them out. That's what Nigel Hughes is sharing. Picks fight with women all the time, and put something at the bottom here. Go in some people. Yeah, we do have poverty in the country. We had to reverse all of the hardship policies of 5 years under APNU. You think the 35,000 people who lost their jobs under APNU, the 2,000 Amerindians who lost their jobs, the neglect of these communities, they didn't lead to hardship and poverty? We had to reverse a lot of things. Have we completed it? We have to do much more to help poor people. But we're empowering them, their children with education, them with health care, getting a house lot, they're getting a job now, they can find jobs to work at now. So that's the start of the empowerment process. So you think we could have, in 3 years practically after COVID, eliminated poverty totally in the country? And when they talk about oil money being there, the oil money, as I said before, is only 37% of the budget. But they go and take the worst shots and put it there. They would never take a picture of the new hospital that has replaced the derelict that they run down. They run down the Enmore Hospital. Now all the people on the East Coast now can go to a modern facility. They don't show that. They don't show the highways or the new bridge or the hundreds of schools that we built. This is what they put. Go, and you can find anywhere some of this. But this is the nitpick, what Nigel Hughes has been reduced to. a leader of no consequence, a nitpicker, and just parroting, stealing people's ideas, and like some lady accused him of stealing all of her ideas and not paying her for it. So maybe I should end here. What time is it now? It's 3:24. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I just end here. It's already getting late.
Good afternoon, Dr. Jagdeo. The APNU Prime Ministerial candidate Jorita Fernandez has proposed 50% in LCDS funding and changing the village-led model to giving residents directly. In your view,
What did she say?
they're proposing to increase the LCDS fund to 50%, and instead of giving village councils to manage the funds, they're proposing to give residents directly. In your view, how is this unsustainable, and why is village-led management important? Secondly, air travel has been a challenge for hinterland residents for many years. What concrete initiatives will your government implement in the next term to reduce the air travel?
Yes. So we reduce, first of all, we remove the VAT on hinterland travel. So under APNU, air travel moving freight into the hinterland was already high. And then they put a 14% tax on it. We removed that. It continues to be high. When the two shows were in Georgetown recently, we spoke of this. We said we are going to try to connect more communities with roads. So in Region 8, for example, if we can connect Region 8, which we plan to do, to Region 9 by roads, by a road, a main road, then we don't have to fly all of the goods that they use into that region. And that's part of the plan, connecting the two regions. So that is one of the long-term plans. Maybe in the next 5 years, we'll work on that. So that's connecting. They would then be able also to produce stuff there and get it out to the market, which they can't get. So it makes it easier for that to happen. The same thing with the Latem Road would be upgraded. So it's easier to move things down by trucks. Within Region 1, by completing the Hosoro, the Kwebana to Maruka Road and the Wauna to Mabaruma, and then Port Kaituma to Machu's Ridge, it gives us more options there to lower cost, the freight. And buying a second vessel to go to Region 1 would also help vastly with that. That's part of the plan. I think I spoke of it last week. So very concrete plan. Then we said in Upper Mass and the other places that are where it's tough, that if we don't see any movement, the operators say to us, the people who are operating the aircrafts, they said that, listen, we charter, an individual will charter the plane, and then they resell the space on the plane or the cargo. And the price is at least 35% higher because they make money from the charter. So we said, if that can't be reduced, that there will be a commercial arm to the GDF. And we will buy more aircrafts. We said it here, the president repeated it in Madhya, that we will buy more aircrafts to populate that commercial arm of the GDF that would assist with reducing the cost in the hinterland. On the coast, I already told you about the way we will address it by greater supply response, some of the cost issues. But those are very, very specific plans we have. No other political party has been able to outline. You get platitudes from them. These specific initiatives. So on the LCDS funding, it's amazing how dishonest and shameless people could be. They were touting that Granger had this great plan, the Green State Strategy. It didn't earn a cent for the country. Didn't earn a cent. It was going nowhere. We had to spend the money to develop it, money that we left from the early LCDS that they were opposed to. They were opposed to the LCDS. Granger said he couldn't look at that. They have not been supportive of the LCDS until now. But now they want to use the money from the LCDS that they were against, including supporting the APA to be against it, trying to block it. Now they want to use the money. Director Finance is talking about how she will use the money earned from the LCDS. So we made it clear that 15% of those funds will go to the Amerindian communities. So far, they've been getting over 20% of the funds from the first 3 years. 14 billion went to the villages. The villages have to decide on their own how to spend the money. We don't tell them to do that. So that means the people in the villages have to go to a public meeting. They have to send us the minutes of the public meetings that was held, and they have to decide on the projects for it to go to. They're getting this money, over 14 billion that they try to block through their surrogates. The same Director Finance and all of the others. Now the rest of the money is going now to safeguard the coast of Guyana, from Region 2 all the way to Region 6, the entire coast. We're spending it on adaptation measures to safeguard our villages, our communities against flooding, etc., and opening up more lands for farmers and other people along the coast. That's where we're spending the money back in the country. But suddenly she wants to take fit because went to Bartica, had a disastrous showing there. Nobody pays attention to them anymore, so they're talking nonsense. But just look at the shamelessness of this. They're counting on using the money for an initiative that they're opposed to. That we, through our creativity, we implemented. Sure.
Hi, Vivi. Tricia Silvers, Guyana Times. Follow-up to Luan's question pertaining to the LCDS. Guyana has been able, through the LCDS, to receive a significant result-based payments for, I would say, forest climate services. Some of those coming from HES, I would say Apple as well. And it's reported that 16 global airlines would have been among those. Can you say what some of the names? Can you disclose some of the name of those airlines, as the information has not been out there? And secondly, is Guyana in talks with any other organization to sell more of our foreign climate services? And my final question, as it relates to the Damar Harbor, the new Damar River Bridge, it is highly expected and anticipated by the Guyanese public. However, the deadline is slated for August 31st, with the general and regional elections being set for September 1st. Can you say if there are any plans to fast-track the project so it can be commissioned prior, or will we see it being commissioned after elections?
So, whatever is safe to do. First, I saw this nonsense about the testing and the weight, loading and all of that. People talking about. We have a supervision firm and we have a firm that is experienced in building this bridge. They're not going to be pushed to do anything that's unsafe. So I don't know when they would actually complete it. It would be very soon. They're now hooking up the final span across. It will be very soon. You can see that if you drive across. But we're not going to push them to meet an artificial deadline just for the sake of the elections. The people in Region 3 and Region 4 who use that bridge and every other region see it every day. They know what the commitment we made. To get a structure up like that in such a short period of time, basically it's 3 years after COVID, a structure like that nearing completion, and with the highways, all the associated highways, is phenomenal. And they see it, and they know that it's going to be completed soon, and they'll be using it. It's 4 lanes now, so you don't have to worry about the bridge congestion. Even, I don't know if they would allow overtaking on the bridge, because I don't know about these things, but it's 4 lanes now. And so it would be easy flow of traffic. It would be free. They don't have to stop at a station or whatever, toll station, and pay anymore. It would promote free flow of traffic. They don't have to worry if they're partying in Georgetown and what time the bridge would be open to go back home. Just that they shouldn't drink and drive, because it's going to be very tall. You don't want to fall off that at all. You don't want to have an accident anywhere. It's going to be very, very high. And so, and I haven't driven a long time, but I think people need to learn to drive over those structures too. May have to take them through to some means of doing that, but it's going to happen. They see it every day. Which other political party could have structured that in this way? They take a long time to do. Like, they love Patterson talking about some small project, and they just love to talk about them. All the time talk about it. Oh, we had the idea, we plan to do it. They even falsely claim things, and they never get it done. Because we're focused. We always are focused on getting things done. So we're not going to push anybody to, of course, I love if it's done before the elections. They can complete it safely before the elections. I love that to happen, so people get a feel for it. But if it doesn't, we'd have to live with that. We want it to be done safely. The question on the airlines. I don't know all the airlines, but it's through it's a facility, so that based in Singapore, but it's a small quantity too that we've sold to the airlines. But the good thing about it, we're hoping to grow from there. So it's sold in block to a group, and then they probably are using the airlines to utilize it to offset their emissions. The good thing about this is it's one of the first time we've sold into a compliance market. If you recall, yesterday I spoke at the Biodiversity Summit. And it was running late, so I did not want to because they had presentations that went way longer than anticipated. So I did not want to kill the event with another long speech, which I had. But I made some key points about model building and how those have to be scrupulously observed as we try to build a model for ecosystem services outside of forest carbon. The original idea was to build a model to market all ecosystem services for Guyana. But we chose to select forest carbon and not water and biodiversity related services, largely because there was a compliance market globally for carbon as an offset market. So we did rigorous technical work to support the model building. So I pointed out here again that there is a whole body of work done on biodiversity that we must, good quality work, that we must pay heed to. But we must not be swamped by the science, because the alliance is less about the science and more about building support for preserving biodiversity globally, because there is a crisis globally in the loss of biodiversity. We are losing habitats and species at a lightning rate. And the whole planet and future generations would be poorer, because when they grow up, the children, we would have lost some species on this planet. They would be extinct if we don't address that problem now. So we need two things to make this happen. We need global political support, and we need global financial support. The political support to allow us to achieve the target set, which is 30% land under protection by 2030, and financial support to assist countries to protect these areas. So we now have to create a model similar to what we did in Guyana uniquely for the sale of forest carbon. And if you listen to the presentation, every speaker spoke about how far ahead of time we were in the 2006, 2009 when we developed our model. Nobody globally was doing that. We had one of the first low carbon development strategies in the world. We were building out a market-based model for forest carbon since then. And that's why I said, so we are now engaged in this model building here. It's a modest start, but we even had a less modest start when we started it. I had like 2 or 3 staff working with me. Now you have at least Yale University, a number of other organizations involved in this model building exercise. So I said, there are things that we have to look out for. Replicability, and we have to focus it on marshaling the arguments based on what resonates most with different groups of people. And I pointed out that even in some quarters in the US, where you have great skepticism about climate change, that people there are very passionate about preserving biodiversity. So we can approach the climate issue tangentially, but they will support action to preserve biodiversity. They may not support action on climate change because they don't believe climate change is caused by anthropogenic action. They believe it's natural. And so this is something exciting for us. I think it has a long way to go, and I'm pleased that the launch is here in Guyana, and we are part of the leadership of this global alliance. And we had a great number of people come here. We're on Al Jazeera, everywhere in the world, showcasing Guyana, the rich biodiversity, and returning to the global leadership we once had that APNU killed in those 5 areas. When you spoke about forests globally in the period prior to APNU, Guyana was always mentioned. King Charles, Bill Clinton, almost every leader would quote Guyana with a leading model. So we lost that ground, and it's shocking to see this Director of Finance now talking about LCDS that they're opposed to, but using the money from it, not doing the hard work on the concept or earning it, because a lot of hard technical work goes into this. You don't see that. often. So I know so the compliance market, I think I come back to the key point I was talking about. The key point is for the first time, we moved from a bilateral deal, then selling into the voluntary markets in accordance with our plan. And this was our first foray into a compliance market, the airline market. Because when you get into the compliance market in the future, that is, if they have a UN-supported compliance market, the price of forest carbon will skyrocket to match the price paid for other types of carbon. And in our sale with Hess, although we sold 30% of the forest carbon for 750 million, we say at least 750 million, because if those credits are resold, we will get 60% of the higher price. So if they, for example, they buy it at $20 and sell it at another, say $30, we'll get another $6. So our price will go up to $26. It's built into the contract. And we're pushing to get the compliance market approved at the UNFCCC.
Good afternoon, Dr. Jagdeo, and Sodium Skytree News. Sir, in October 2022, President Halley said that government was open to government partnerships in developing oil blocks. Is it something that's still on the cards, and is it something that your government is going to prioritize if elected to a second term come September 1st?
I think we're committed to the auction, right? You know, we've been discussing this for a while. And the last press conference, or the one prior to that, I said, we're hoping next year to go back to auctioning the blocks that we are not so successful in and additional blocks based on relinquishments that we've had. We want to go this time with 3 pieces of information that would not have been available to those who are bidding in the first round because they were not available at that time. One, the new PSA, which sets out the new terms under which you will come in. So instead of a 2% royalty, 10% royalty, instead of no taxes, a 10% tax, and also a lower sum set aside for capital recovery. 2, the law that we passed, the new law replacing the 1986 law. And 3, seismic studies, 3D seismic studies. With these 3 pieces of information in the next auction, we believe that we'll get good bids. And now, you know, the signing bonus is huge attached to the bid. And this is signing bonus to explore, not signing bonus to produce, like what Exxon paid 18 million in signing bonus for production license. This is just a signing bonus for exploration license and could go as high as $20 million. So we believe we can pursue that. You're absolutely correct that we had announced a policy of working with bilateral donors. We believe that we want to continue to do so, but it must yield good results for our country, because we may be able to cement good deals with people who have expertise in this matter. So maybe a Qatar or a Kuwait or one of those countries that have a long experience in this regard. So it's still on the card. The third thing that we will come back to in the next term is the development of the gas, not the gas to energy project, but monetizing of the gas. The gas that we now re-inject, which we believe is wasted. We re-inject it back into the wells. Exxon claims it needs that to keep the quality of the well up. We disagree. We believe that gas could be monetized and bring a significant sum of money in additional revenue to the Guyana. And we will pursue that. That's the third thing. Fourthly, we will have to start improving the way we monitor and manage these agencies. We've put in place more tools now through the new law, through the EPA permits, etc. We now have to step up our monitoring and evaluation of these entities that are producing offshore. Those are some of the, in a nutshell, 4 things that we can move back to.
Dr. Jagdeo, Cordell Jones from Live News. Yesterday at the Biodiversity Summit, the U.S. Ambassador shared some thoughts on the possibility of Azrain Mohammed making it into Parliament. Could we have your thoughts on the views expressed by the Ambassador?
So, this has generated, or the comments made by the U.S. Ambassador has generated a lot of discussions. And as usual, Azruddin Mohammed and his trolls and a number of people in their camp, they tried to distort what the ambassador said. And I think I have the transcript somewhere here. Maybe I can't find it. I don't know if I brought it. But she was very clear. She was speaking of what happened around the world in similar situations and how the United States views certain matters. So she spoke about their reticence to engage with committees in the parliament if you have certain individuals on that committee. The United States of America sanctioned Azruddin Mohammed. The Treasury sanction is a serious sanction. It's not just like taking away your visa. That's a form of sanction too. This is a serious sanction. It dictates how U.S. entities can engage with sanctioned individuals. The OFAC statement said, you are prohibited from dealing with these individuals. As a result of that sanction, the Mohammeds were part of a team that was developing a facility in Vredenhoop for Exxon. The Exxon, they had to leave that consortium because Exxon could not do business with the Mohammeds. People forget that. Exxon could not do business with the Mohammeds. The U.S. ambassador said, any member of parliament is seen as part of the government. The way they see governments abroad is a combination of the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. So if you have a transgression in the judiciary or in the legislature, guess who answers for it? The executive. We have to answer for that. Never mind, we have no control over the executive, the legislature, or the judiciary. So she said, U.S. companies will, like in other cases around the world, have difficulties engaging here, and it could affect private flows to Guyana. This is a real issue. So what's wrong with her speaking of She represents the United States of America. The United States of America sanctioned this individual. And she's saying now that U.S. companies, based on what is the position of OFAC or the Treasury, would have a great difficulty in doing business with him or maybe with Guyana. It's a statement of fact. But they are making it to seem somehow that otherwise. First of all, they've been downplaying the repercussions of the sanction. So they're saying, oh, this is nothing. It's just that you can't do business with us. That's what Mohammed is saying. It's not bad. We make all the decisions. You remember the outside of the Umanayana. It's downplaying these sanctions. But the sanctions are real, and the sanctions made it clear that people who do business with them globally, but including locals, could face law enforcement action. It states that explicitly. We've seen since then people losing their visas. We've seen people losing their visas. And they make light of this, misleading this whole nation. That's what the Mohammeds and their trolls and the whole family, they're a family enterprise, a criminal enterprise, misleading people. You notice that the brother-in-law, the Russian one, and his sister, they didn't give up their U.S. citizenship to be on the list. They did not give up their U.S. citizenship to go on the list. They're the most vocal ones now, but they're safeguarding, protecting their asses. They would not give up their U.S. citizenship, but put everyone else at risk, all the people on their list at risk. So I see this big thing now coming out from all of that now. There's a big discussion about the bank closing people's account. And I'm thinking, are people for real in this country? They're making this look like the bank had a choice and it's discrimination. And suddenly they're quick to change everything to PPP discrimination. Oh, this bank is close to the People's Progressive Party. That is why their accounts were closed. Then sidetracking. They're good, they're very clever. Look at all the trolls and the people that they put online to defend them. So one, it is, what about May Thomas? What about May Thomas? So forget that they have been, the bank closed their accounts. What about May Thomas? When you asked about their sanction, oh, it's the PPP closed the cambio. They sidetrack everything. When you ask about the Lamborghini, he has an invoice to support it. They're clever at sidetracking the key issues, because the key issues, if people really analyze them, this guy would be in the lockup. So the fact of the matter is that May Thomas accounts were closed by Citizen Bank and Republic Bank. That's the fact of the matter. And the fact is that the banks in Guyana, if they lose two things, access to the SWIFT that allows them to transfer money, or the correspondent, that's a global system, that when the United States wanted to sanction Russia, there was a move to remove them from the SWIFT. It's a code that's used by all banks around the world. Anybody who has to transfer money abroad has to go through that system. If you lose access to that, you might as well shut down the bank. If you lose access to correspondent banking relationship with the US, you might as well shut down the bank. And the banks in the US have been de-risking themselves. A lot of Caribbean countries lost correspondent banking relationship with them because there's something called de-risking. Go and read about it. It's been a global issue. Citibank, we've been trying to get Citibank to come back to Guyana for retail banking. And you know what they said to us? We come out of retail banking almost in the entire Latin America and the Caribbean. We're only in Mexico. But we'll come to Guyana and set up a representative office. If you lose correspondent banking relations with the US, or you lose access to the SWIFT, you might as well shut down the bank. You can't function. No, you can't send a wire transfer abroad. How would we pay for our goods and services? You're going to put the money in a bag or get mommy to smuggle it out for you? That's what you're going to do, or smuggle the gold out and sell it abroad? That's how you're going to be paying now for goods and services? So, what is this big outrage? You now, all the people who are on his list, in spite of being told about this, you're now formally part of an organization headed by a man who is an OFAC sanctioned individual. It's different than when you were not on the list. You're part of an organization called WIN, headed by a man who is sanctioned. You're formally part of that because you're part of his submission. So you're subjected to enhanced scrutiny. No bank will want to risk that. Look, their relationship with the US. So when they say boycott the Marara Bank, well, another bank did it and more will do it. And let them go to the bank, let them go and open the account at another bank here to see which bank will take the risk of opening accounts for them that will run afoul of the US banking system. The US banks, even the US government doesn't have to tell them. They'll quickly cut ties with the local bank in a flash. Because the quantum of money flowing through here is not big compared to what their global business is. And they don't want to run afoul of the US. If you work with sanctioned banks in the US, if a US bank were to be implicated with sanctioned individuals globally, then you know what happens? They'd have massive fines. They may not lose their banking license, but they'd have a massive fine from the US government or the Treasury. Who is going to risk that because of, what's her name, the Lowenfield assistant? You think for the small sums of money, the banks, if I had a bank, the first thing I do, I'd shut down everything with them the next day. Because I'm not risking the future of my bank and the depositors' money and the shareholders' money and everyone for a couple of people who are forewarned of the consequences. They take it lightly. And so it has to be someone else's problem. If the bank don't like them, the PPP don't like them. They don't look at themselves. I can't imagine the level of stupidity in the analysis that I see of why they hosted a press conference to do that. Oh, the bank closed our accounts, etc. People are almost, I'm sure that they're going to examine everyone on their list, because why would the banks risk themselves? And for example, the private sector here, the private sector must be worried about for them, their staff and stuff. Imagine you have what the US ambassador said, coming back to that issue. If you look how many franchises you have here, Starbucks, you have all of the other franchises now, US-based franchises and stuff. You don't want to lose your jobs or your money that you're investing in these things. The private sector must be worried too. must be extremely worried about the possibility of a sanctioned individual, causing consequences for them and their families and their businesses and their employees. All because this guy wants to protect his own ass. That's what I'm...
We've seen opposition MP German Figueroa recently endorse President Ali. Could you clarify whether he has joined the PPP formally as a member?
No, and he's not required to join the PPP as a member. We don't have these rules that if you come to us, you have to carry a party card. You have to cuss the other side. We don't work that way. German Figueroa, he decided on his own that he wanted to be part of this vision that is being pursued by the People's Progressive Party, a vision that includes all of the people of the country, led by a president who has demonstrated he has experience as well as the experience to implement the programs associated with that vision, as well as the concern for all the people of this country. And he said he wanted to be part of the team to work towards that vision, and he's welcome to do so. And as I said before, we take people at their face value and we embrace them. We're not a party of suspicion, etc. And his work will determine how much he believes in that vision. And I hope that he could also be a conduit, as so many other people, to those young kids who get misled by the lies they are told. And that he could really get them involved in to take a look at what our plans are for young people in every community, whether they're Amerindian young people or Indian or mixed or Afro-Guyanese. We have a plan for young people. So he is welcome, and we're happy that he has decided to support the vision of the People's Progressive Party.
Dr. Jagdeo, Mikhail Rodriguez for Daybreak News. You have gone on several occasions to great lengths to explain the dangers of sanctions and the effects of sanctions. You tried to some extent to explain or interpret what the U.S. ambassador said yesterday, limiting your explanation for what she said yesterday to commercial. But she also suggested look at Afghanistan, which suggested general turmoil in a country. Given all of this, given all of these worrying factors, the Americans have brought sanctions against the Mohammeds, a government official. Banks are running scared as a result of the risk of doing business with people closely associated with Mohammed. The Americans revoking visas of people even seen with the Mohammeds. Your government has done nothing to counter the effects that Mohammed would have on this country, the negative effects coming to this country. Your government has done nothing, although so much is within their power, although you have said so much about the criminality as it relates to the Mohammeds. Your government has done nothing so far, even with all the pressure coming from the Americans and what was said yesterday by the American ambassador. What do you have to say to that?
So we act in accordance with the laws. The people of this country have to, on their own, decide what sort of future they want. So we have been clear about the risk that he poses to the system, to the country, to our borders, our territorial integrity. to the functioning of the country of Guyana. We've pointed this out on several occasions. We've pointed out the several acts of criminality that he's being investigated for and that he'd have to face consequences in the future for. We've pointed out the dangers of the sanction to the individuals concerned. We pointed out that he's using the money that he can't place in banks to buy support. Even APNU has said this. So people have to decide in this country. And in our strongholds, we've been doing this. People of this country have to decide whether they will put their children's risk at future, their jobs, their own well-being for the sake of $20,000 or $50,000 that they get paid, because he has nothing to offer. He has no plan. He has no vision. He's incapable of even explaining basic things. So what else outside of the money and the lies that they tell? And they're good. There's an industry at telling the lies. And he has enablers in the media that you represent. Enablers. We did our bit to point out the dangers of him. The enablers sit in the same media to give him, highlight him. The enablers, he has enablers in the Starbuck News. So that's what I spoke of earlier. The report, he gets more reports than the PPP. You would think that we are a party that has 500 people and he has 25,000 at his rallies. He gets more coverage than we do. And they select the reporters. So a particular reporter goes to cover him. I don't want to call her name, but she does that. They select it. She covers the Starbuck News pages and gives them a favorable view. You have a ton of the others. Travis Chase and all of the others. They're enablers. Some are being paid and others because of this hatred for the PPP. APNU and the AFC are enabling him to. You heard what I said at the beginning of my press conference. Anything but the PPP. They don't care if they tie a bundle with the devil. Anything but the PPP. So he has enablers in this country, including from the media. So don't blame the PPP. We point out the dangers. But people have to make choices. And that's what we're saying to our supporters. If APNU doesn't want to say that to its supporters, it's different. So I don't see, we're not going to lock the Mohammed up just like that, if that's what you're hoping to do, that we pick him up and lock him up just for anything. We have due process in the country. But at the end of the due process, given the evidence that is available now, he'll have to face consequences for everything. The taxes evaded. So that's how I see it.
When your government was voted in, was to serve a majority of people and to protect those people. Why do you everything else, you decided you'll build roads, you'll set up infrastructures, you'll set up hospitals.
Yeah, so
why not protect those people?
What would you like us to do tomorrow? What would you like us to do to protect the people?
Heard about GRA executing his job, SOCO execute. If a man got a vehicle, 2 vehicles in the yard, SOCO runs and goes and seizes his vehicle. Mohammed has been sanctioned. And SOCO does nothing.
But clearly you're not following what's going on. The government has to act in a certain way. The government has to act lawfully too. I can understand the feeling that one person could get away with murder literally when they have tough action against people. There's this view that because he has compromised several people in these agencies, he could get away with literally murder. Trust me, it's not going to happen. We got the information, we went to court on the matter. He put in an invoice. You talk about the Lamborghini. He said he paid $75,000 for it. The United States government went, the Treasury found the invoice, they spoke with the people. He paid nearly $600 and something thousand for it. We took it to the court. The judge said, I can't accept that. And I will tell you why in September. So we can't, that's what was reported. So we couldn't appeal the case. So you saw what happened here. We did what we had to do, so he avoids accountability. But it's not gonna end here. Then the same invoice was used in the magistrate court. He was charged, and he will, eventually the case will come up, and he will have a chance to prove that he actually paid the $75,000, and then when abroad, when we have a ton of evidence, when it goes before the magistrate and they find that he is lying, that he submitted a false invoice, then the sentence will be pronounced on. So that is how we work. We work lawfully too. But he is not going to get special treatment because he is wealthy, nor would he face unfair action by the government because he's an opponent of the PPP. He will not face that too. We will go through the process. At the end of the process, I'm convinced he will face the consequence. You got to pay for all the taxes, and with the penalties, the way I see it, because the U.S. and us, we both have tons of evidence now about the $10 billion, the 11 billion, 50 million U.S. evaded. So when the penalties are added here, you're talking not about 11 billion, you're talking about $25 billion if you apply the law. That's a lot of money. I'm not sure. Anyhow, let's deal with that when that comes up. All of those matters will be addressed in the future.
Dr. Jagdeo, Azadin Mohammed rolled out his manifesto starting 3 o'clock today. It can't be likened to the outlandish manifestos made by the PNC, but it sounds more like him accepting his transgressions and looking for forgiveness through a manifesto. Fighting crime and corruption and
I dealt with that.
Dealing with disabled kids and these kind of things. It sounds like things might have been affecting him. Given the kind of outlandish things these individuals are saying, what reassurance you have for Guyanese in general that your manifesto, PPP's manifesto, is still the best by far?
I dealt with that earlier. I don't think you were here. So I don't want to go back through the entire thing. So the thing is that they've had a chance to look at everybody's stuff and they come up with, as I said before, I hope he spoke about the framework, the macroeconomy, etc. You know, they gave him a piece of paper, I'm sure. Yes, he will read from a script there. And I'm sure if interrogated about how he'd finance it, etc., he had the media asked him questions. I would love to see it later. If he had a free-flowing thing like what we have here, any media house could come and ask anything. I'd love to see him defend a piece of paper that they gave him to read, like a school child. So, but they're gonna curate that. Let me tell you. Coming back to the same point about the falsehoods. So you can't believe anything these people say. So you know last week when I spoke, I spoke about the doggy matter. And where he brutally beat this young lady because she was trying to collect her money that he promised her after the nomination day. And by the way, I hope that he doesn't have to beat anyone else for the money for them to go to the Parfait project too. The Parfait meeting they had. I hope he doesn't have to do that. But we condemn it outright and said, this is indicative of the way he mobilizes. He would mobilize through people like Doggy and the others. So thereafter, after Thursday, I saw, they said, his sister posted that somehow I was part of some plot to make her brother look bad. Well, in different language, the usual bullshit that she writes. And then the henpeck kept brother-in-law, Russian brother-in-law. He started posting about Jagdeo part of a plot with Amir from the Sheriff News Network. So I need to say that this man is a Russian who's, I want to repeat it, henpecked and kept. Just check what those things are. That's the only way I can characterize him. But he bullies a lot of people at the different meetings. He tries to bully even reporters. We'll deal with him later. But I didn't know that Amir spoke with Doggy about some matter. But clearly, they had a plot. So the plot was, after Doggy brutally beat this lady, they then took, the team Mohammed took Doggy to their home and then got this young lady to go there based on her statement to the police and try to cover it up. That is the team Mohammed, that whole criminal enterprise. Even threatened her with a gun that she couldn't leave, from what I saw in the media. How come that was part of the PPP plot or Jagdeo's plot? Did I tell Doggy to beat this young lady? Did I tell Azruddin Mohammed and his surrogates to cover this up? And then falsely issue a statement distancing themselves from the matter, whilst behind the scenes they were trying to cover it up because Doggy is his chief organizer, who said he gave the party the name. So they then got Doggy to issue apparently a statement saying he distanced himself from the party, which he said it's a fake now. So in that period, Doggy distanced himself from the party to remove the blame for beating up the woman for not getting her payment from the Mohammeds. So to remove him from it. And then later, Doggy rejoined him and saying, oh, it was just fake. Amir made me do it. And somehow Jagdeo is part of the plot. So what came out of this all is that I started examining this a bit more carefully. And I had not paid serious attention to what this Amir from the Daily News or the Sheriff News Network was doing. People said they accused the PPP of telling him what to post. And many times there were posts made there that I don't agree with too. Lots of times I see posts there that I don't agree with. Now, we would never condone or endorse in the PPP. But it served their interests to make it seem that it was PPP telling him to do this, because they want to capitalize on this concept that they're being victimized by the PPP. You know, that's what they're telling people. Everywhere he goes, oh, the government take away my license, this is a wicked government, etc. That's the concept that they're selling to people to gain sympathy. So then I realized what's the real problem. Because Amir himself has been talking about it now, and it came to my attention that this is a family problem. This is a family problem and a family dispute. They have bad blood among themselves. I did not know that Azruddin is Amir's stepfather-in-law. I said it, when I discovered it, I was surprised, because then everything fell in place. I said it at the meeting at Patentia, and the ladies who were there were looking at me blankly. Clearly, they didn't know themselves. But many people don't know this. And they've been fighting each other for a while over their family business, calling people prostitutes and all kinds of things. All day long. Fighting, including this Russian brother-in-law engaged in like petty fight with women and everything else. That's the story, a dirty story that they have. And this guy, they don't want that angle to come out, because then you would see the true Azruddin. And that's why now I think they're trying to blame the PPP too. But if you dig deeper, then you will see this image that they're trying to create of him, philanthropist, etc., would all fall apart because of what's happening, the dirty kind of stuff that they have among themselves. So don't blame the PPP in your personal fight. If you and your son-in-law, Azruddin Mohammed, and your son-in-law Amir got a fight, you keep it among yourselves. Don't bring the PPP into this and everything. So they're blaming the PPP. We had a plot with some doggy through Amir to tell, as though we told doggy to beat up the lady for the money. It's all part of the dirty sort of thing. But they're accustomed to this, to wallow in the mud. Wallow in the mud. This is part of this. When all that you've been accustomed to, he says he's a successful businessman. He could manage things. What kind of successful businessman? He's been smuggling gold. You're not a successful businessman. You're a gold smuggler. And possibly other types of smuggler too, as Reuters said. Reuters accused him of smuggling cocaine and laundering money for the Russian mafia. You're not no successful businessman. So I wanted to get that point out. They're clever at blaming somebody else to hide the dirtiness. And watch how their trolls come on. From the time people say anything, they have an army of them who get paid, and some others who, if you click on their pages, they're all fake. They have about 15 friends, or that's all. And they're fake. They manage them together. So I just wanted to get that point out. Yes.
Good afternoon, Vice President. Kim King for Guyana Standard. So the opposition in recent press conferences has been citing data from development banks regarding poverty in Guyana, which suggests that almost half of the population is living in poverty.
But that data, when is the data from? It's 2018, 2019
Yeah, some of it is
data.
dated. Mhm.
Right. It is 2018, 2019 data. And it keeps, and Nigel Hughes keeps repeating it as though it's current. Everybody clarified that already. This is what happened under APNU. So I'm sorry, Kima, for not allowing you to continue or interrupting you. But from then to now, so the old age pension has been doubled. 60,000 people more at a minimum are working. We now have better access to health care. The children got a grant. A whole range of things have changed from then to now, from 2018 to now. So they keep citing the old poverty rate from 2018, shamelessly doing that. Nigel Hughes, when they were in the center of government, when Cathy Hughes was busy giving herself contract, she wasn't concerned about poverty when that report came out. That was a 2018 report, or a report that used 2018 data, and the World Bank itself clarified that. So that was the poverty data.
So my question is, given all of these things the government has done, the government has not focused on providing more updated empirical data on
Yes.
poverty and inequality. So is this something that you're looking
I
at doing?
think we need to have another survey now, because it was a household income and expenditure survey. We need to look at that. And what it would show is that tons of people more are working, earning. Look at the disposable income again. Look at public sector. For all the people who are talking, if you go and take the wage bill in 2020 and look at what it is today, it's nearly $120 billion more. That's a lot of money. That's about, I was saying 500 million US dollars, but it's closer to 600 million, because when you add the wages increase to 2025, we didn't add the wages increase. That's what it is, 600 million US dollars more per year that goes into the pockets of public servants. That's a large sum of money. And you don't need, if you're talking about empirical data, give it to Azruddin, if he could navigate it, or Norton, ask him about it. So let's hear what they will say about that. Ask about the pensioners. The pensioners are getting $20 billion more per year, right? The children, $11 billion more per year because of the Because We Care grant. That sort of thing. So we need to do the household income and expenditure survey.
That's something you're actually planning to do?
Yeah, we will have to do it.
Okay. Will the mid-year report be released before the election?
Huh?
The mid-year report.
I don't know where they are at this point in time with this production, but I anticipate it should be ready. It should be ready. I'm now more clued into the elections. We have about 40 days more to go, and so I'm more clued into that.
Note, the president talked about the draft migration policy as a tool for shaping Guyana's workforce in the future. Could you elaborate on how this policy aligns with your vision for a post-oil economy, especially if you could address the roles that the targeted migration that you want to see will play in meeting the demand for labor in the future?
Yes. So a lot of people were pushing us to do a migration policy in the 5 years. And we said, no, because first of all, we have to get our own people back to work. A lot of them had lost their jobs under APNU. A lot more lost their jobs when when APNU shut down the country because of COVID. We had to get those people back to work. We've managed to get most of them back to work. We said we had to get jobs across the country, because although in Region 4 and 3 we tend to have more jobs, some regions still don't have enough jobs. So we started working at boosting spending in those regions through the public sector for roads, bridges, housing schemes, etc., that generated more income for the private sector, more jobs, etc., for people. We went to the part-time job program to assist in those regions. We had about 15,000 people employed across the country, including in Region 10. We started moving initiatives there, so to get more of our people to work there. I've mentioned several times when I come here, like on Essequibo Coast, it's not perfect now, but at least more people are working. And the same thing in Berbice and in Region 10, etc. They have jobs in the Amerindian communities too. We still need to continue doing that, getting all of our people across Guyana, wherever they live, more jobs. So that's the key task. Thirdly, we want to get more women in the labor force. And so we started off by the part-time job, but we believe we can bring nearly 100,000 of our own people, our women, into the workforce. Because then we have more Guyanese working. We want, first of all, to take care of our people. That's why we said, if you want to work a second job, now we're giving you 50,000 per month of the second job you don't pay taxes on. That's what we did the last budget. We want our people to work. We want more people to work more jobs, not because things are bad, but because they can move faster up in life. That is what we're doing. So first of all, taking care of our own people. That's the strategy. In the 5 years, we've come up with some labor shortages, but so we have allowed people to bring in labor for some of the big projects. Like the bridge across the Demerara River, they brought in labor. They bypassed highway, they brought in some labor. But we have kept it limited. So that is what we have approached. On an ad hoc basis, we have approached people coming in with labor. We now need to move to something more formal, where we can debate it in Parliament, we can draft a policy, take it to the Parliament, have a debate, a full debate, and then settle on how we want to approach migrants, or to get more foreign labor into our country, because we'll need it based on our development plan, once our own people are working. So we're starting off, first of all, by knowing who is here. We want to know who is here. How many of us Guyanese are here by the issuance of this ID card with biometrics, and how many non-Guyanese are in our country, which we will know very soon when that survey is done. So we'll know how many Venezuelans are here, how many Chinese are here, Indians, wherever you're from. And they would have a separate card. So you can only function in our society with this card, because it would be a requirement for our banks and everything else. Once we know who we're here, and then we assess our demand for labor, we will then be able to agree to a migration policy that allows people to come and work here, treated differently, right? Treated decently, I should say, but have some differentiation between the benefits to Guyanese and those who are coming in. And that is the essence of what we're trying to do. So we're going to draft policy. Policy would have to be debated in Parliament. We're committing to that. We're not going to agree to a migration policy to just bring people in without having a full debate in Parliament on the matter. And we want to make sure that we know who is here first. So when we report to Parliament, we can say they're 50,000 foreigners here. This is the composition based on our records, etc. That's where we're headed. And so that will take into account all that we're working towards. The oil industry, the demand for labor there, well, where we want more of our people to work because they're higher paying jobs, the demand for the expansion of agriculture, and the other sectors of the economy. So it would take into account the manpower requirements of the country, and then the migration policy would be based on that.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just outlining some of the key principles of the policy.
So you have said that opposition parties are hopeful that the PPP becomes a minority government
Yes.
after September. Do you see on the list of contenders parties that you can work with to advance your agenda in case that happens?
We will work with people in the context of parliament, but I don't see now the need for that. We've done our polls, and I'm sure they have done the polls too, and they know what the outcome is. It's unhinging a lot of people. They've already made it clear, anything but the PPP, that's their motto now, anything but the PPP, APNU and AFC and any of the others. But people know if you have a minority government in this country, the country suffers, and two, that having them in power is going to be a disaster for Guyana. They've seen it before, and it will be even worse if Azruddin Mohammed becomes the president, which is a far cry from reality.
Okay, finally, we saw that Chevron recently won in its arbitration against Exxon and CNOOC and acquired Hess. Do you see any immediate implications for Guyana of that?
Not immediate implications. And as I said before, for us, it's just a change in the ownership of the shares. However, we didn't have any jurisdiction over that matter. We dealt with that some time ago in the past. However, having another U.S. major that had a kind of, tense relationship with Exxon. So Chevron is one of the shareholders now of the company in Guyana, will be having acquired Hess's shares, and Exxon on the other side being another major shareholder. That tension between the two could serve our country better, because they're going to be working to ensure, remember, Exxon is also the operator. Outside of a shareholder, it's also the operator. So I'm sure the shareholders would look at the costs for the operators to make sure that those costs are minimized and focus on maximizing output, because they, as shareholders, will be getting more money if that were to happen. The company is run more efficiently. And if it's run more efficiently, it also maximizes our take. So if there was fear, for example, that Kaichor News, if they had fear that costs were inflated that we are auditing now, Chevron would also be concerned about that, because it is now a shareholder. And it will affect them too if costs are inflated by the operator.
Exxon accountable?
Accountable, yes.
Okay.
Accountable, and also focus more on optimal ways of managing the company. And so they have, as a big shareholder. So.
Good afternoon, Dr.
Yes,
Jagdeo.
good afternoon.
I just have one question. What do you say to voters who might be concerned that Guyana's debt is equivalent or almost equivalent to the money that is being earned from oil that is also being spent to help fund some infrastructural projects?
So the debt The debt you are saying about?
Yeah, it's actually equivalent to
which
the money.
Which figure you're talking about?
The entire figure is 6 billion earned from oil, and we almost owe 6 billion as well, or have 6 billion. in debt.
Yeah, but the thing is that, so what do you think the debt to GDP ratio is now?
That it's one of the lowest, but still some
Yes,
folks are
but
concerned.
you have the answers yourself, right?
No, but some folks are concerned that although we are earning from oil,
Yeah.
and we're still spending some of the oil money, rather than we're not using loans alone to fund these infrastructure projects, we're also using some of the oil. You understand? So people are a bit concerned that you borrow equivalent to the oil and we're spending from that. And I know that you said
Yes.
I know
I
that
don't
you
get the point. So if we say 37% of the budget, right, comes from oil money. So clearly it means that the rest have to come from somewhere else. So we pointed out that about another 30-something% comes from revenue that is non-oil revenue, right? So the rest comes from loans every year to fund the projects. I outlined the principle of the loans. The loans are intended to support economic growth. So for example, the gas to energy, Exim Bank, the part of the bridge is funded from a loan, part from the budget, about $100 billion from the budget, 100 million US from the budget, the rest from a loan. So it's to build these things, okay? So we clearly understand that before now, that oil revenue, non-oil revenue, and loans are funding the current budget. When people make these wild promises like APNU and the others, you have to think about, and when, like Ganla says, we have so much oil money. But knowing that, you have to say, these people are crazy. Because the budget here, which is to pay our public servants and to do the capital works, etc., even oil money can't be enough to do that, much less fund the big things they're promising to give away all this money. So that in itself should show how sterile and basically uneducated those suggestions are, because they're not sustainable. That's the first point I make it. So we outline clearly we'd have to continue borrowing into the future until I made this point a couple of weeks ago. So when we finish building the bridge, say the bridge across the Demerara River and all the bridges to let him, and the one across the river in Linden, and all the highways, but most of which are already awarded. We don't have to spend that money anymore, right? So then the capital budget shrinks. So the biggest part of our budget is the capital budget now, unlike on the afternoon. They were spending it on consumption, we're spending it on capital. So when that reduces, it means now that our overall budget can be reduced and we can fund more the recurrent parts of our demand, like more higher wages, better conditions of services for our nurses, our teachers, everyone else. Every guy needs more cash grants, etc. We anticipate by 2027 we would not have any need to borrow, because we will be able to fund more of our activities from the budget, maybe 2027, 2028 or so, around that level. But even if we do borrow, when you look at the debt now in relation to the size of our economy, that is your capacity to repay, it's tiny compared to the past. It was 153% of revenue, then it came down in 2015 to 45% of, no, that was under servicing, 10% of revenue to service the debt. Now it's down to 5% of revenue to pay back the debts. The debt in itself was 900% of the economy when we took office. Before oil, 45% of GDP. Now it's down to about 13% of GDP. So it's two of the lowest figures in the world. The debt to GDP ratio and the debt servicing to revenue ratio. Two of the lowest in the world now, and will continue to be like that in the future. So that is how we are approaching the matter in a sustainable way, in a long-term way. The United States of America now, to service their debt, they need $1 trillion per year. $1 trillion. Their debt is over 100% of GDP. In almost all the European countries, their debt to GDP ratio, which is 13% in Guyana, is nearly 100% or over 100% in many European countries. In Japan, it's 250% GDP. Japan, I think, is the third largest economy in the world. And so that is how good a position, but it has to be sustainably managed. I hope Azruddin Mohammed dealt with all of these matters at his manifesto launched today about debt to GDP ratio and everything else. I hope he dealt with it. You weren't there, yeah. Critic went here? Oh, it's still happening? Oh, it's still happening? Okay, all right.
Good afternoon, Mr. Vice President. Shenard Mentis, Sheriff News. Yesterday at the opening of the Biodiversity Summit, you spoke about prioritizing locals. What is one or a few areas the local population can benefit from your biodiversity plan? Secondly, the president in his manifesto would have spoken about having one of the largest gold mining operations in South America. Additionally, how would your government pair the increase of the gold mining sector with the conservation of our forested areas and creating the continuation of LCD, low carbon?
Yes, I understand what you're saying. So this was a big concern dating back to 2009 or so when we were launching the LCDS. Many people thought that if we launched the LCDS, we'd shut down gold mining in Guyana, and that was not so. There's still possibility, even in our current framework, to actually increase gold mining in Guyana, because our forests, we have still one of the, in fact, probably the lowest deforestation rate in the world at this stage, when you look at the rate of deforestation. So doing gold mining, even expanding it a bit, will not affect that or global credentials. And we have a robust MRV system, monitoring, reporting, verification system, that supports this. So we over a large number of years, they've been doing a lot of exploration. So I think the gold mines now are ready to produce or to move into the development phase. So that's what the president is talking about. And we had grandfathered, I know Granlal will be talking about them digging out the gold, but you saw the incentive regime for gold mining. It's a standard contract, which we have released. It's on the ministry's page. The Ministry of Finance put it up. It's a standard contract. You can see all that they're eligible for and what taxes they have to pay. We've increased the royalty rate just before I left the presidency from 5% to 8% for large-scale gold mining. Right, so once it's over $1,000, huh? Yes. So we increased the royalty rate at that level. So it's clear that more benefits will come to the country. On biodiversity, the alliance, and it's more to push for global reform, But by signing an MOU with Yale, we'd be able to do much more work. We've done work with the Chicago Field Museum, Smithsonian, and now with Yale and a number of other organizations to do research for people. I pointed out at in my short presentation yesterday that we, even in the original conception, we were going to establish a Center for Biodiversity Studies. So two things could happen. One, if we put it as a center of excellence in our university, we'd be able to export educational services. We can bring in some of the best teachers from around the world on secondment from Brazil. We had offers from Brazil, from the US, India, China, wherever. And then recruit international students to come here to Guyana to do a high-level degree in biodiversity studies. So we'll be earning more as a country. When the students come here, they pay international fees, not it wouldn't be free for the foreigners who come here. Secondly, we'd be able, through a biodiversity center, to promote the orderly research, medical research by the pharmaceutical companies using our flora and fauna to develop new medicine and all of that. And Guyana will share the patent. We'll own some of these patents and then, share the benefits from the research. Our country will share that. So that's the second area. The third area is we have to identify more hotspots. So there are some hotspots in the hinterland where we have teeming biodiversity, like the fish population is very high or the insect population is very high, to put those under some form of protection. So the local communities will benefit. We need rangers, etc., to put those under protection. So there are multiple ways in which we can benefit from such an alliance. The global fight is for a sustainable enabling framework, and nationally it is to move forward with concrete specific benefits to our people. That's how we are approaching the matter.
Dr. Jagdeo, last question, just to follow up on what Kimo
Yeah, sure.
would have mentioned. Is there anything that we can learn as a country or even your government? Is there anything that we can learn from the recent case with Hess and ExxonMobil, the recent case that happened? Is there anything that we could learn about creating policies, new policies or whatnot for oil exploration?
Well, that was a dispute they had. Exxon went and sought arbitration, claiming that it had the right of first refusal for the sale of the shares. It went to arbitration and Chevron prevailed, so they can conclude the deal. Arbitration is a big issue in the future, and developing maybe the capacity to do good arbitration to represent us. So we need to have a domestic core of some of the best lawyers, that mean training our young people to be able to represent us properly globally. But we'd always have to recruit in the best skill from other places too, because sometimes a lot of money is at stake when you arbitrate these matters. So maybe you asked me about what we can learn from it. So maybe doing a bit more, building out the local core, but at the end of it, you'd still have to hire the best skill from around the world to represent you, because the arbitration often takes place not in the local environment, but internationally. And therefore, you need people with the requisite experience. Okay? Thank you. Thank you very much.